Having worked at the forefront of the Formula One motor racing industry for over 3 decades, Mark Gallagher knows a thing or two about the importance of collaboration. From the design team to the supply chain, from the pit crew to the driver, the importance of these teams working together can make a difference not only between first and second place, but between winning or losing as a business. From his leadership roles at Cosworth, Red Bull Racing, and Jordan Grand Prix, Mark knows firsthand what it takes to build championship teams. Today, he is putting these principles in place to fuel his own team, Status Grand Prix. And he has authored a new book entitled The Business of Winning. Please join me in welcoming Mark Gallagher.
How are you all? Nice to see you. Good, good. Need to get a bit of action, I think, into this arena. Let me ask you a quick question before I start into my presentation. Do we have any Formula One fans in the room? Can I have a show of hands? All right, there's about 40. Okay. I've got 40 friends and several hundred people who just don't care that much. Okay. And the thing is, I had to show that video because, you know, Formula One, it is sexy. It's very glamorous. You might imagine it's full of very sexy, glamorous people. None of them were available to come with me today. So instead, I have the job of talking to you about Formula One and trying to make it relevant this morning. I have to say it's a great privilege to have been invited. Thank you to Ariba and to SAP for inviting me to come and share a few thoughts with you today. It's fascinating to listen to the other speakers because just as I hope to give you a few insights, it is great to listen to other people from other businesses talking about the way in which they manage their affairs, be it in procurement or business, how the challenge of change is in front of all of us, the digitization of pretty well everything, big topic in Formula One at the moment, the advent of autonomous driving systems, vehicles that drive themselves in the future. That is the future of the automotive industry. There are a few engineers in Formula One who would quite like the cars to drive themselves as well. Some of the drivers, a little bit too edgy for our liking. But at its heart, what is Formula One? It's a sport of technology. To work in a Formula One organization, as the previous speaker just touched on, to visit a Formula One team is to suddenly be introduced to a world that actually many of you would be quite familiar with because it is a business. A Formula One team is an engineering company. It's an SME engineering business employing typically 600 or 700 full-time staff. We design, manufacture, and produce a product. We bring the product to market, and we sell it. The product that we produce happens to be one of these things, a Formula One racing machine. But for any of you who'd be involved in the manufacturing sector, if you came with me to Red Bull Racing or to Mercedes-Benz or to McLaren, you would be introduced to a world that you would be very familiar with in terms of the functions, the types of roles across the business, and the day-to-day challenge of running that. The simple fact is that the only difference is that we don't produce large volumes of our products. We only design, manufacture, and produce a small number of vehicles each year. And yet, what do those 700 people do every day of the week? Well, they're involved in all of the design, manufacturing, development, all of the procurement activities that are such a topic of this conference. The supply chain management, the procurement to create one of these machines is quite extraordinary. Think about the challenge. We have to produce a product which is a combination of technologies from aerospace, from automotive, from ICT. The automotive technology, in some ways, isn't that amazing. The car has 4 wheels, tires, hasn't changed that the wheels are circular. The aeronautical engineering that goes into it is actually quite cool. The cars are effectively an inverted aircraft. We fly it into the ground. The ICT aspect of it is where all the action is, because the last 20 years of Formula One has been about data. It is a data-driven sport. We design and develop our cars in a virtual environment. Gone are the days where we produce a component and we take it out and we physically test it and see how it performs. We try to prove every system before we commit it to action. And this business that we're involved in, with 700 people working to create these amazing technologies, also requires another team that is extremely important to us, and that is our suppliers. And when people say, well, what kind of supplies does a Formula One team need? Well, of course, there's the raw materials to create the vehicle, the carbon fiber, the lightweight metals and alloys that we are permitted to use under the regulations that we have to adhere to. Then there are lots of systems that we actually buy in, things that we are not experts on. Brake systems, perhaps the powertrain, perhaps the gear ratios, perhaps some of the electronic systems. Suddenly you start finding quite a long list of suppliers who are providing us with key technologies which we have to integrate into our final solution. So when Ariba asked me to come and speak at this conference, I thought, actually, I'm going to take up that offer because Formula One is all about collaboration, and it's all about collaboration with our supply chain partners. And it is about partnership. There is a view, if you read the media around Formula One, that we're involved in a sport awash with cash, a bottomless pit of money. Teams like Mercedes or Red Bull or McLaren spending vast amounts of money. There appears to be no end to our ability to waste resource. And yet I can assure you the exact opposite is the case. And it is because the exact opposite is the case that we work with an organization like SAP and Ariba, because we require efficiency in everything that we do. We require efficiency in our procurement because we actually want our suppliers not to take advantage of the fact that we are a Formula One team. I mean, can you imagine the response of a new supplier when they get a call from a Formula One team saying we want to buy something? The first thing that that supplier imagines is that we have got a ton of cash, okay? The prices just go up straight away. They triple. I think, wow, these guys go to Monte Carlo every year. I mean, they have such a glamorous lifestyle. So actually, our procurement from a negotiating point of view, getting the best price, is actually a very significant challenge for us. We have to burst the myth that we are going to pay whatever it takes. We are just as interested in looking after the bottom line as any business anywhere in the world. And we also want to ensure that our suppliers understand the nature of what it is that we do. Because the nature of what we do means that when we are producing a brand new product every year to meet a very tight set of regulations, we require our suppliers to understand our project management plan, the deadlines which have to be met. We can't afford to be let down by anyone in that supply chain. We can't afford to turn up for the first Formula One race in Australia with the best car in the world on Monday morning. The race was on Sunday. Project slippage is just impossible. Those immovable deadlines of 19 or 20 Formula One races are a non-negotiable. So we want a lot of conflicting things from our suppliers. We want best-in-class technology solutions, we want the best price that they can give us, and we want them to, in many cases, self-certify the quality that we require to be integrated into our finished product. So it's a demanding environment. So that's my introduction. One of the fascinating things about working in Formula One, my goodness, since 1983, is some of the experiences I've had and some of the people that I've been very lucky to work with. This gentleman, Michael Schumacher, made his debut for my Formula One team, Jordan Grand Prix, way back in 1991. We were very fortunate to work with him on his first weekend, and indeed, I suppose one of the highlights of my career was to witness the very first time he drove a Formula One car. And right from the beginning, it was pretty evident that here was the right kind of person for us to have as a driver. He clearly had a lot of talent to drive a race car. And he was intensely passionate about his goal of winning as an individual and winning for his team. Very passionate, very motivated. And he's an interesting person, Michael, because not only did he then go on to win 7 World Championship titles, the most successful driver in the history of our sport. Not only did he win 91 Grand Prix victories, stand on the podium over 160 times, an extraordinary achievement from a sporting perspective. But there are a couple of qualities about him which really I wanted to share with you. One is he understood his role within the team in terms of providing leadership, a great inspiration to the people who worked with him. They knew he could get the job done, and he relied on the team of people to deliver for him. So he understood the importance of teamwork and collaboration. For him to stand on the top step of the podium, he needed the whole team to deliver for him. But there's another aspect to that. He also understood the importance of the suppliers. Now, that might be an extraordinary thing to say about a top Formula One driver. Why would he be interested in the suppliers or the supply chain? Well, the simple fact is that Michael, along with the Ferrari team, understood that for them to achieve their potential as a business, that relationship with suppliers no longer needed to be purely transactional. It wasn't just about buying assets or buying goods or services from suppliers. It was about partnership. It was about working with those suppliers to say, yes, we want what you have, but actually more than that, we want the best of what you have, and we want you to understand the nature of what we're trying to do because we want you to innovate for us. And if you read about Michael's career, you will see that quite often the media will report how during his 5-year domination of Formula One, 5 successive seasons he won the World Championship, it was the fact that he had sort of almost symbiotic relationship with some of the key suppliers like Bridgestone, the tire manufacturer, like Shell, the fuel and lubricants manufacturer. He would sit down with them and work through what can you bring us that's going to give us that incremental advantage which I can then take the opportunity to use to win all of these races. I do know that one of the downsides of Michael's domination of Formula One, followed shortly afterwards by Sebastian Vettel's domination of Formula One, is that it did make it quite boring. Is there any agreement on that? Yeah? Yeah, a few people nodding. Someone put their hand up. Wow. Well, I'll tell you how boring it was. If you think it was boring to watch on television, try competing against these guys. I used to go to Heathrow Airport every other Wednesday afternoon, stand in the departure lounge and talk to everyone about who would finish third this weekend. Who's going to be third this weekend? Because we knew this guy would win. The impact of this on my life, you cannot begin to believe. I was in the shower one morning singing. My wife came into the bathroom. She said, "What on earth are you singing?" And I discovered that I know the German national anthem. I have listened to it every 2 weeks for about a decade. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Sebastian. But what else are we interested in doing, as well as having these great collaborative partnerships and relationships with our suppliers? We're interested in getting hold of information. Information that means we can make split-second decisions. Split-second decisions on the racetrack, split-second decisions back at base. We're under intense pressure always to deliver. And so working with the suppliers, we need to do lots of things to make sure that we get guaranteed outcomes. That's what we're all looking for. Our financial community is looking for guaranteed outcomes in terms of how we manage our budgets and our profitability. Our operations side is looking for guaranteed outcomes in making sure that our suppliers understand that the point of supply may not be our factory in England or Italy or Germany or Switzerland. Our point of supply may be any one of the 20 locations at which we are racing around the world. And the reason we want all of this information is because in Formula One, we have to manage risk. Risk in all its forms. People think of the physical risk. Anyone here from Holland? This is our friend Max Verstappen. He's 17 years of age. He doesn't even have a driving license yet. And he's racing in Formula One this year. Here's an interesting statistic about Max. If he wins a Grand Prix before the end of September, he can't drink the champagne. He's too young. He's actually too young. Bizarre. Anyway, but managing physical risk is, of course, an inherent part of what we do, and we're very good at it. But we're also interested in managing all the other risks inherent in our business. The financial risk, it is expensive. Managing all of our resources effectively. So getting hold of information is absolutely vital for us to ensure that we get the outcomes that we want. And this is really why, as I said earlier, the last 20 years of my industry, of Formula One, has been around getting hold of data, getting hold of the right information at the right time about the thing that really is going to impact on us. It manifests itself in lots of ways within the industry. Perhaps the most publicly known is the fact that when our Formula One product is on the racetrack, it's on a network. It's on a network providing real-time data to data analysis engineers who are sitting, not watching television screens, but watching data streams coming from our product, getting real-time intel about all of the systems, how they are operating, a ton of information being generated by our product real-time. And what are we doing? We're looking for anomalies. We're looking for things that are going wrong. We're looking for systems that are degrading. We're looking for systems that are actually developing a fault, because we want to mitigate the risk, including the risk of not finishing a race. Because for all that people think that Formula One might be about high-performance technology, actually there are a couple of other things that come before that. Yes, we want great technology, but we want technology that's safe, and we want the technology solution that's robust and reliable. So the job of our data analysis guys is to look at the information real time and to be keeping their eye on where are the anomalies, and also where are the opportunities. Where can we squeeze out some extra performance as the race develops over a 1 hour, 45-minute period? Lots of things can happen. The behavior of our competition can change. And when our competition changes, as one of the speakers said earlier, benchmarking ourselves against the competition means we need to have the speed and agility to react immediately. We are really not interested in a post-mortem a day or two later where we look back and reflect on what we could have done. We want to do it right now. So having access to that information and being able to instantly respond is vitally important. There is one other interesting dimension of this data-driven Formula One, which is that with all of these sensors, perhaps up to 200 sensors on the vehicle, sending us all of this information about not only how the system's behaving, but also how the human being driving the car is operating it. So we know everything about that employee in terms of what he's doing to get the performance out of the vehicle. We are forbidden, under the rules, to transmit data to the vehicle. So the data transmission is in one direction. The reason we're not allowed to transmit data to the vehicle is it would become remote control car racing, okay? And remote control car racing isn't so far what we want to do. So as a result, how do we change our performance? How do we have the agility to quickly react if we see a system going wrong or something which creates an opportunity? Well, that comes from the fact that the driver has at his disposal functionality. And functionality in your hands, having a device that enables you to secure the outcomes you're looking for, is actually what we are so much talking about every day, and certainly at this conference, about having the functionality to be able to get the outcomes that we're looking for. So for a Formula One driver to be able to have in his hands all of the functionality required to enable him to mitigate risk and to guarantee performance, this is utterly vital. Now, looking at this, it kind of reminds me that the topic of change is, I think, quite important to all of us. When I started working in Formula One in 1983, a steering wheel was a wheel. It was circular, and when you turned it, the front wheels moved, hopefully in the same direction, and that was it. And then around about 1990, some bright engineer had the idea of putting a button on the steering wheel so the driver could actually do two things at the same time. Now, this was quite a revolutionary thought. The idea of any man being able to multitask was, of course, quite extraordinary. The thought of a Formula One driver driving at 320 kilometers per hour having to press a button was quite weird. Let me ask you a question. Any ideas what the first button was that we put on a wheel? Radio. Who said radio? Correct answer. Can I tell you, I asked that question at a conference in Italy 2 months ago, and someone said, a horn. And they were not joking, okay? And actually, I have talked to 2 people in Formula One about that since, and I said, this is actually the future. We need to have Sebastian Vettel come up behind Lewis Hamilton and get on the horn. I mean, this would solve the problem of hybrid engines that are now a little bit quiet, okay? If we just have a big horn, this is fantastic. Radio is the correct answer, because actually, the first requirement in terms of functionality for us was great communications. Because no matter what we're trying to do, getting great communications between the end user of our product and the engineering team is absolutely vital. And look at where it's gone to. That's just the front of the steering wheel. On the back, we have levers and switches. The drivers often have over 40 different wheels and dials and switches that they can use to give them the functionality to improve performance. To go into a sub-menu, for example, using these buttons, +1 and +10, they can go into a sub-menu and adjust performance parameters affecting the performance of the vehicle, or perhaps reset a system that's failing, or maybe even switch a system off entirely that might result in them not finishing a race. I do know that at least some of you will have already focused on the one button that I always get questions about, which is, what is the drinks button for, okay? Now, let me just explain. As we have gone global as a sport, we now race in very hot countries like Bahrain and Malaysia and so on, and the drivers will often lose 2 to 3 kilos in body weight during a race. It's a great crash diet if you ever fancy trying it. But this is purely dehydration. And of course, dehydration has huge and profound implications for the driver in terms of their alertness. So we rehydrate them by having drinks on board. And again, you might wonder, well, can they not just, suck through a straw? Well, we've tried that, but the trouble is they're also busy driving and absorbing 5G G-force, so they can't suck and drive at the same time. Now, some of them do suck at driving. That's a completely different thing, but they can't suck while driving, and so we have a pump installed in the vehicle. So when they need to get fluid, they just press that pump and they get what they need. But on a serious note, where has this led to? Where has this data-driven Formula One led us to? Where are there business opportunities from it? The fact that we have embraced technological change. Well, you only need to look at a team like McLaren, who incidentally are partnered with SAP, not as sponsorship, but as actually an amazing case study in the power of, for example, the SAP HANA product, and the way in which McLaren use SAP's technology to guarantee the outcomes that they're looking for. And if you look at McLaren today, 10 years, pretty well, we're coming up to 10 years after the tobacco sponsorship ban. You know, the end of tobacco sponsorship drove about 65–70% of the revenue out of our industry, revenue that we have never actually replaced in terms of sponsorships. So the successful business model for teams like McLaren has been to diversify their businesses into a wide range of activities across, in their case, of course, automotive, very famously, their Applied Technologies division. McLaren's Applied Technologies division, I would urge you, go and have a look at what they do. Just go online, have a look at what McLaren's Applied Technologies division do. They have effectively taken their data analytics capability that they've developed in Formula One with SAP, and they're now exporting that know-how into a wide range of industries and different sectors, because they have the capability to predict outcomes with extraordinary accuracy. And this means that they have in their hands 20 years of experience of taking data, mining that for relevant information, and giving your business the outcome that it wants to know about. To conclude my presentation, a little bit of fun, because we're talking about collaboration. And the thing about collaboration, whether it's to do with our suppliers, whether it's to do with the people that we work with, it's all about everyone understanding their role in the big picture. You know, the supplier for us who delivers a component late, you know, if they supply something late to us, that could stop us racing. We often say the most important part of a Formula One car is the part that we don't have. We need everything to be there at the right time, to the right specification. Everyone has to deliver. And in our teamwork, we see that as well. There is often a tendency for us to think that somehow delivery is a responsibility of someone else. This is Lewis Hamilton, reigning world champion, coming in for a pit stop in Malaysia a couple of years ago in his Mercedes. And of course, he's expecting his team, which are standing up here, to give him an amazing pit stop. He's looking for just a few seconds of customer service, of turnaround to get him back into the race. And so he's really hoping that they're ready to deliver for him. He lines the car up beautifully, comes in, and forgets who he's working for. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever turned up accidentally to a competitor's office in the morning, gone in, got your cup of coffee, opened your laptop, sat down, and then thought, oh, wow, I'm next door. Sorry. And actually, every time I watch that clip, I so wish the McLaren team, when they saw Lewis coming back to say hello to them, had just simply taken his wheels off. That would have gone viral. That would have been a really good, just a little pile of bricks in the pit lane just to leave the car sitting and then walk away. That would have been really quite good. But actually, this is a great analogy for collaboration and teamwork in any business. Because when you think about 20 or 22 people working together to deliver an outcome, to supply 4 new wheels and tires, to adjust the car in terms of its aerodynamics. This is what is needed in order for us to guarantee the outcome of maintaining our lead in the race, getting the maximum out of our, hopefully, race-winning strategy. The Ferrari team, a few years back, targeted halving the time that it took to do a pit stop. There used to be 6 seconds when we had refueling. Ferrari targeted a 3-second pit stop. And you can imagine the reaction of their technicians on being informed that here was an essentially human activity, which took 6 seconds, which was pretty impressive, and saying, actually, guys, we want you to do it in half the time. A few people weren't too happy about it. The guy who operates the front jack, for example, he said to his boss, you need to think about what you're asking, because I have to stand in the pit lane waiting for Fernando Alonso, who's doing 300 kilometers per hour, to stop here, okay? Now, if he stops 2 meters too early, that's inconvenient. If he stops 2 or 3 meters too late, I end up in hospital. So I don't need him feeling more urgent about our delivery. And anyway, if I do the pit stop, jack the car up, the team do an amazing pit stop, I jack the car down again, I'm now standing in front of him, and he wants to go in this direction, so I have to get out of the way. And when you look at the solution that Ferrari came up with, a very simple innovation for him, getting engineering to deliver a front jack that swivels out of the way. Very, very simple innovation that came from talking to this guy. And that's the thing about collaboration, isn't it? It's about having gut communication, talking, whether it's a supplier or an individual, and saying, actually, this is what we're looking for. Can you help me to deliver it? And that kind of seamless, almost military precision of teamwork, not just at the front of the car with our friend here. Look at this gentleman at the back who's just arrived into the picture. He removes the top 1.5 centimeters of the rear wing. The other 12 guys have replaced the 4 wheels and tires, and Fernando Alonso is back into the race. And that was the first 3-second pit stop. But yet, it's not the world record. Because when Red Bull saw the Ferrari 3-second pit stop, they decided to go a little bit better. 1.9 seconds. Now, I admit they do drink a lot of Red Bull. That may be a factor, but actually I don't think so. The factor here is a team of people who sat down and, having looked at what Ferrari had done, they set out to benchmark themselves against that and then to beat it, and to beat it comprehensively. And that conversation involved their suppliers. They talked, for example, to the supplier of their wheels. The wheel is circular. It's been circular for quite a long time. It's not that complicated. You might think, where could the innovation come in a wheel? But getting the wheel manufacturer, which is a supplier, to design a wheel with them, so they collaborate to design a wheel that fits seamlessly onto the hub and has an integrated wheel nut assembly so that you can't drop the wheel nut and watch as it rolls off across the pit lane. This is the kind of conversation that was had. Even the wheel gun company, which make the wheel gun for Red Bull, working with them to come up with a specific solution to give them an improvement in performance. So even in the supply chain, Red Bull were engaged with them to get the outcome that they looked for. And when you see the solution in action, when you see how an essentially human task has been transformed through innovation, wheel off, wheel on, car gone, it is truly inspirational. Next time you go to get snow tires on your car, download that. Show that to the garage, Tell them it would be useful if they could answer the telephone in 2 or 3 seconds, let alone do this. But for me, this is ultimately where we get to. When we run businesses which collaborate together, which generate an understanding of each other's strategy, where you get outcomes that are guaranteed, where you can move your level of efficiency onto a completely new level, you start achieving things that you never thought were possible. And for me, in 30 years in Formula One, to see a pit stop done by 20 ordinary mechanics in less than 2 seconds is an extraordinary world-class performance. Thank you very much indeed.